nauseous, yes. I may be dizzy.
You're such a good boy.
I go to the movies a lot, and I always show up early, and I always watch the trailers, and they always show the exact same fucking trailers every time. But I still do it, right? I still like doing it. It's part of the experience, like popcorn and soda and sneaking in candy. So I've watched the trailer for The Bad Guys probably a dozen times now. And it was around the third or fourth time that I really started to recognize how uncomfortable it made me. Specifically, this part.
Oh. Thank you, dear. You're such a good boy.
I wasn't exactly sure why it was grossing me out. All I knew is that I had a visceral reaction every time I watched that part of the trailer. I'm kind of worried that I'm going to be alone in my opinion here. But don't you think there's something inherently sexual going on here? I know, it's just a kid's movie. He's just like a dog or something. This might feel like a stretch for some people. And look, if you read it as innocent, that's totally valid. I'm sure that's what the filmmakers intended. But I can't shake this feeling that there is something so off with Mr. Wolf's reaction here. Before I get too ahead of myself, let me set the scene a little, just in case you didn't see the movie. The Bad Guys came out last April to fairly decent box office and critical reception, but I haven't heard many people talking about it. But when was the last time anyone talked about an animated movie that wasn't put out by Disney? Minions, I guess. Fuck, that's a bad point. So, The Bad Guys is essentially an anthropomorphic animal version of Ocean's 11. Their raison d'etre is rooted in robbing banks and stealing jewels and all sorts of other heists. Their occupation is a kid's idea of what a criminal is, which, of course, is fine for a kid's movie. But I can't help but think that the movie would have been improved with more guns and murder. But I guess kids get enough of that sort of thing at school. The unimaginatively named bad guys are made up of a wolf, a snake, a shark, a piranha, and a tarantula, named, naturally, Mr. Wolf, Mr. Snake, Mr. Shark, Mr. Piranha, and Webbs.
We call her Webbs.
They are a crack team of close friends that are more like a family and take incredible joy in the act of thieving. They don't seem to need the money, nor do they particularly revel in the high life. It's the act itself that is the prize. The journey, not the destination. There are really only 3 other notable characters in the cast. The governor of California, or wherever the hell they're supposed to live, who's a fox named Diane Foxington, a local genius scientist guinea pig named Professor Marmalade, and the chief of police, Misty Luggins. A human, strangely enough, but we'll touch more on that later. So Governor Foxington insults the bad guys, leading Mr. Wolf to plan a heist on some sort of gala where Foxington is supposed to present an award to Professor Marmalade for his contributions to humanity or something. Anyway, the heist goes wrong. The bad guys are caught, and instead of being sent to jail, Foxington agrees to let Professor Marmalade take them in and rehabilitate them into being good guys. That's it. That's all you need to know. So back to the whole good boy incident.
You're such a good boy.
Why does Mr. Wolf's blushing, wagging, drooling reaction to being called a good boy engender such uncomfortable feelings? Well, I think it has something to do with me not fully understanding what it means to be an animal in this world. The world of the bad guys is full of humans. Almost entirely humans. The only animal characters in the world are the 5 bad guys, the governor, and Professor Marmalade. Everyone else is human. Interestingly, that's not at all how the original graphic novel is. At least the 2 I read in preparation for this video. No, in those graphic novels, every character is an animal. Similar to Zootopia or Beastars, both properties with their own psychosexual issues worth making a video about. But in the Bad Guys film, the world is very much like our own, with only 7 anthropomorphic animal characters that, well, sometimes, I guess, face prejudice for their species.
You're afraid because I'm the big bad wolf.
Are generally treated just like any other human. So why did the film adaptation make such a big change to the world of the bad guys? Even going so far as changing characters that were animals in the graphic novel to humans in the movie. like the feline reporter Tiffany Fluffett. I can only imagine they did it so that our primary characters in the film stand out in the world. But if that was the case, why did they make Misty Luggins, chief of police, a human, rather than a rhino or something? That is never made clear. Not even in the film commentary or interviews that I watched. I can only speculate that since Misty is an antagonist, they wanted her to represent, I don't know, human bigotry towards animals. Arrest them! It kind of makes sense. Mr. Wolf states in the beginning of the film that he represents, all wolves from fairy tales.
Well, I'm not surprised. I am the villain in every story.
Mr. Shark represents Jaws and any other horror story about a shark. Same goes for the other members of the team. All 5 of them are villainous or otherwise predatory animals. And I guess that's why all the side characters are human. Because if everyone's an animal, maybe that starts to lose efficacy as a symbol. I get that. But Diane Foxington? She's the governor, not a bad guy. Though we do discover she does have a criminal past. Why is she an animal? Honestly, I think it's because she's sort of a love interest for Mr. Wolf. Foxes and wolves are kind of similar. So the thought of the 2 of them together isn't as creepy as, say, a human and a wolf. Not that that matters in a cartoon. Did anyone give a shit that Roger Rabbit was dating a human?
I'm gonna faint.
No, we were all happy for them. Then again, people did recently have a big problem with a mouse and a fly hooking up, so maybe animated interspecies relationships are more complicated than I thought. And as for Professor Marmalade, he got to stay an animal because guinea pigs are cute, I guess. So Mr. Wolf is a wolf, but he's not really a wolf, right? What do I mean by that? If you look at some other talking animal cartoons like 101 Dalmatians or DC League of Super Pets, they all have a few things in common. The animals in those movies are pets. They walk on all 4s, and though they can speak, they can't really communicate with their owners. And in these movies, since the animals are usually literally pets, it makes sense that they would be pat on the head and called a good boy. But the bad guys doesn't work that way. Mr. Wolf is not a pet. He walks on 2 legs, and people understand him as clearly as they do anyone else. In addition, he wears clothes, drives cars, plans heists, for Christ's sake, not things that animals are generally want to do. Therefore, I think we need to look at this film using the Hello Kitty philosophy, which is to say that Kitty is not a cat, but a little girl who looks like a cat. Mr. Wolf is not a wolf. He is a man that looks like a wolf. Yes, he has sharp teeth and claws, and he's covered in fur. And yes, he kind of looks like a wolf, but he doesn't operate in the world of the film like a wolf. And look, I'm not trying to over-intellectualize a simple concept. I understand the point is that Mr. Wolf is the embodiment of the evil wolf stock character that is so prevalent in children's stories. I'm merely saying that his appearance is a visual metaphor, and diegetically, he is no different than any other person in the film. So, coming back again to the good boy incident.
Good boy.
When Mr. Wolf becomes flushed, nervous, strangely excited by being hugged and pet and called a good boy, I cannot see this as some pet dog who, by his very nature, is happy to be doted on by his beloved owner. I'm seeing a grown man having an inappropriate reaction to a fairly normal human interaction. It's weird! Like I said before, I listened to the commentary. The filmmakers seem like very nice people who, of course, had innocent intentions. They were creating a blended reality where Mr. Wolf has both human and lupine characteristics. And I imagine that most people, especially the children that are the target audience for the film, saw Mr. Wolf's behavior as innocent and amusing. Maybe they even had a similar reaction. Warmth spreading through their body while watching a funny-looking wolf doing something that their dog back home does when they pet him or call him a good boy. I understand that I am the pervert here, applying my own twisted interpretation to a totally harmless cartoon. But go and watch that scene again. I can't be the only one that thinks it's at least slightly weird, right? I can't be totally alone on this, right? Right? Don't unsubscribe.